Salford City Radio 94.4 FM. This is Jimmy Petruzzi with you with the Friday weekly sports show. And tonight we've got a very special guest. We've got Ian Foran standing in for Clifford Tyrone for this week. The Ian Foran, the founder of the Football Man Cave and the Boxing Man Cave as well. We've got a very special guest at 6:20, a football manager who's been in the game for a number of years, and he's going to be joining us at 6:20. I'm going to keep that under wraps for now. A very special treat for you all. I hope you had a good Christmas and New Year. We're good to go and ready to rock for 2019. Ian, welcome to the show, buddy.
How are you doing, Jimmy? All right?
Yeah, fantastic. And so it's been a really busy set of Xmas fixtures. We've seen Liverpool look like they could run away with it. They got pegged back last night by City. What are your thoughts on the Christmas break? At one point it looked like that Liverpool were going to run away with it. City's come back. United, Solskjaer, he's sort of a bit of a resurgence there. What are your thoughts on Liverpool and the league and City, and how do you see it going?
Do you know what? I watched the match last night, and it was a cracking match to watch as a neutral. Obviously, first time ever I wanted City to win, but I don't know. It looks like a bit of a tight one, doesn't it? Really, like if you sort of see Liverpool the way they've been playing, unbeaten first half of the season, it's an exciting, for the first time I think in a while, an exciting Premier League race. I'll be honest, I can't really call, especially after City sort of clawed it back to 4 points last night as well. If it keeps up that way, you never know. Liverpool have got history of letting the lead slip from Christmas onwards. It's a case of if Jurgen Klopp can sort of keep that momentum going and not bottle it like they have done in the past.
Yeah, no, I think that, for sure, you make some really good points there. And traditionally, we've seen in the past, certainly in recent years, Liverpool either find a way. I wouldn't say to lose the league has been tough. I mean, there's a lot of great teams in there. I think this Liverpool team here is a little bit different. I think the energy they've got is phenomenal. They've got some players in there that can play that high-tempo game. I suppose it's whether they can keep it going for the rest of the season. It's going to be a tough one to play at that tempo. Yeah. We'll see what happens. And City, they tend to play economically. They pass the ball about. They're a good passing team. So it's going to be interesting, really. Like he says, I think it keeps the league open. I think 10 points ahead, it's going to be tough to pull that back.
Yeah.
But in saying that, football's a funny game. I think City got the experience. They've been pegged back before by United. So, all that said and done, you'd like to think they've learnt a lot. What about the Solskjaer effect? What do you make of the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer effect? I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, where you got one of the most successful managers in the history of the game, from all accounts, from what it looks like from the outside, the dressing room was lost. What do you make of that? New manager comes in, Solskjaer, and all of a sudden these players are passing the ball about and they're scoring goals, and it's incredible, isn't it?
It's literally like watching night and day. It's frustrating to see that these players have got this in the locker. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they've had it in the locker. Obviously, as a United fan, we all knew the shackles were on. Do you like, and we're playing with a lot more freedom nowadays. Solskjaer would not have been my first choice, 100%. Never would have been. But to be honest, I think he's come in. It's like a breath of fresh air, playing the attacking football that we're used to. I think a lot of it is down to Fergie. I think Fergie's still in his ear a little bit as well. He's got Mike Phelan there, he's got Michael Carrick, and he's got a good sort of crowd around him. The United way, as we call it, and it's refreshing to see. But I don't know, it's hard to call because obviously it's 4 games that were winnable and we should have won it. But when you look at the performances and look what we've done, it's what we should have been doing under Mourinho. Do you know what I mean? What we used to do under Fergie, just blowing these teams away. I'd like to see him against Spurs coming up. I'd like to see him just put under a bit of pressure. I think he did well second half tactically. Obviously, Lukaku was a massive impact. Sanchez coming back, but I don't know. I mean, there was calls of him of getting the gig on a permanent basis, but I think it's far too early. I mean, you've had 4 easy-ish games. You know what I mean? Like,
no, exactly. I
sort of see him under Koch.
Exactly. I completely agree. I think the danger is, like he says there, that they get carried away and give him a long-term contract. And I think the sensible thing to do is see what happens and put it on ice till the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's early days. He's made a good start. You can only start as you mean to go on. Credit to Solskjaer and the team. They've turned things around, that's for sure. That said, we'll sort of see when they play teams in the top 4 or 5.
Champions League as well, they've got.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge test this weekend against Tottenham away. And I think it's a better barometer. Tottenham away is going to be a good barometer of whether they've improved to turn the corner. I mean, these are good players, by the way. You know, Pogba, these are world-class players. Sanchez, they're not, you know, these are world-class players, and it's always been there. But it'll be interesting to see how they go against Tottenham. And I think for me, like he says, important point, you know, certainly you don't want to be seeing 4 or 5 year contracts being thrown out there at this moment in time. But, you know, credit to Solskjaer, and I think that he can only do what he can do. And at the moment, he's made a good start, and I wish him well. I think he's obviously knows the game. One thing for sure, his heart is in United. I mean, he loves the club
that as well.
For sure, he loves the club, and I think sometimes you need that breath of fresh air. But we'll see what happens. But obviously, you know, going forward, is there any names that you'd like to see? And anyone listening, could you get in touch? The Facebook page, the Friday Weekly Sports Show, or the Twitter page, Salford City Sports. Get in touch and let us know what you think. Who would you like to see, Ian, and the fans next year? Who would you like to see come in if Solskjaer was given the job as a stopgap? Who would you like to see come in next year?
I think the name on everybody's is end of the tongue is Pochettino, is a Spurs manager. Zidane's obviously thrown about a lot. Obviously, what he did at Madrid over the 3 years, but I think if you look at Pochettino and what he's done at Spurs, even what he did at Southampton, is I think he's obviously not, as they say, proven. He's not won a trophy as yet, so people sort of measure that success on that. But if you sort of see what they've done, the way they're playing football, the way they've brought youngsters through, the club as a whole, how it's ran, I think it's very united, and I think he could really flourish under Old Trafford, given the opportunity as well. Yeah,
no, I think it's a good point. I think that, you know, he's certainly got the energy and the vibrancy for it, that's for sure. I think the other managers as well that's been Allegri from Juventus. Ancelotti, I think, would be a good choice in the sense that he's been in the Premiership before, he's won the double here, he knows the Premier League inside out. It's just whether he stops on at Napoli, but, you know, certainly United is a huge club, and, you know, United is a sort of club that's hard to turn down. I think that he's a candidate. He plays attacking football, a lot of experience. The only thing I would say about Pochettino, for all that he's done so far, he's not won anything. I think that United is a huge club, and Tottenham are a big club, obviously, but United is United. And I think for me, you know, can he sort of replicate what he's doing at United, what he's done at Tottenham at United, but win stuff. You know, winning stuff's important. I think there's one thing about playing pretty football and exciting football, but winning stuff. United is a winning club. They want to get back to winning ways, you know.
Exactly, and that's it. That's why probably we brought in Mourinho to win, to win stuff,
and he did. To be fair, he did. I mean, he won stuff. He won stuff. That's for sure. And the only thing is, obviously, you know, the brand of football probably wasn't what United were looking for. The fans certainly at that point, but, you know, he did. He got them back in the Champions League. They were winning stuff, and football's one of the things where you judged on your last game. That's just the way it is. And, you know, a week in football's a long time. But tell us a bit about the football man cave, Ian. So you've spoken about that before, the man cave, and what are the developments at the moment on the football man cave?
Football man cave, we've sort of had not a rest, but just sort of reassess halfway through. We've been going for 5 months now, and just to sort of see which direction we were going. Was we going to concentrate more on lower leagues? Was we going to incorporate the top 2, but more sort of academy side of things, only under 21s, loan players, etc. So this year we've turned the corner, and we're just sort of looking for more writers. We've got a couple of writers on now. Another one for United. Got John Yates. He should be a decent writer. We're looking, like I say, if we're honest with ourselves, the United and the City, there's a lot of stuff out there already that you can read. So we're looking at under 21s, under 18s, sort of spotlighting a bit more like your Mason Greenwoods and Chongs and stuff like that, and then getting fully involved in the non-league and the lower league type of teams. We want to do some sort of videos, documentaries highlighting the fans, and really sort of kicking on. Just seeing how far we can take it, to be fair.
That's really interesting stuff. And so you've expanded into the boxing cave as well. And what's the plan for the boxing cave? That sounds pretty interesting. Yeah,
well, I'm a big fan of boxing. And nowadays, boxing's... But I think every man and his dog... Even like my wife's got into boxing in recent years. It's mental that you can sit down and watch it on a Saturday night with her, which is good for me. I get to watch more boxing, but it's a similar sort of concept as Football Man Cave, whereas we're going to be highlighting the boxers from Manchester. Currently there's 86 professionals, 2 females there. So it's a case of like having a look at the shows coming up. There's a lot of small hall shows, highlighting the names that nobody really heard of, but do you know what they should have done by now? Everybody knows your Anthony Crollers, everybody knows your Terry Flanagans, your Tyson Furies, but no one's really heard of, say, Ben Capps or John Telford, even Jay Taylor. Do you know what I mean? Like, we want to be highlighting that and giving them a little bit of exposure as well, because obviously you don't know where they're going to go, but I think if you're a boxer, you've already took a massive step, and it's such like I wouldn't say a lonely sport, but do you know what I mean? It's only you in the ring, and I think that needs to be highlighted a little bit more, and sort of getting these small hall shows with a good pal of mine, Kieran Farrell, from Haywood. He's promoting now. He's got a good roster of boxers, and that's kind of where the idea come from. Like, I want to promote the likes of himself and his boxers, and get people excited about the lesser known people as they do the box office. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's where the money's going, the box office. I think it was just before Christmas. It was we had 2 box offices. We had Joss Warrington on one side, we had Dylan White on the other, and obviously for people paying, it's £45, where you could have just gone and watched a small hall show for, I don't know, 10-15 quid, had a couple of beers and had a decent night.
Yeah, no. And is there anyone that you mentioned a couple of names there? Is there anyone coming through that we should look out for? Anyone specifically you think from what you've seen so far we should look out for?
A guy called Danny Wright is an exciting fighter. I don't actually know when he's fighting next. I've not seen him sort of pop up. He was supposed to fight just before Christmas, but it got cancelled. So it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting to sort of get involved with him a little bit, because, like I say, he's a decent prospect. But there's plenty out there. From all, I think there's 15 different weight divisions that we can be covering. And like I say, we just want to get involved and highlight the football teams, highlight the boxers from Manchester, and just show how good Greater Manchester is.
No, fantastic, and I look forward to it, and we look forward to getting some updates, Ian, of some of the boxers you've got coming through. And I think the publicity around the Fury fight last year and the way he turned things around and what he achieved has been a big thing for up-and-coming boxers. And I think that his humbleness and the way he went about doing what he did, and there's certainly going to be another fight in the cards, that's for sure, one would think.
So.
And it sort of raised interest. And sort of takes us to our next guest. Speaking of non-league, our next guest has been in the game for a number of years, and he's been at the game at professional level and in non-league. And who better to talk about non-league than our next guest, Brent Peters, who's a phenomenal manager who's worked in the non-league for many years at Bacup, and last year celebrated his 20th year at Bacup Football Club. So we've got him on the show. Brent, good to have you on the show.
Nice to speak to you, Jimmy.
Fantastic, Brent. Great to have you on the show. We've been sort of reflecting on non-league. My co-host this evening, Ian Foran, he sort of covers the non-league, and he does a lot of non-league coverage for the Football Man Cave, and we've been reflecting on non-league and sort of getting some of your thoughts on non-league. Brent, you've been in the game for a number of years, and last year celebrated 20 years at Bacup. Can you tell us a bit about the listeners, what it's like to be a non-league manager, just a bit of a flavour and insight in terms of what it's like to be a manager at a non-league club?
Well, it really depends. I mean, it's a bit unique at Bacup Borough, because I'm not just the first team manager, I manage the club. So basically, I have to oversee everything, the administration, the maintenance of the pitch, the maintenance of the stadium, the social side of the club, and obviously all the playing side. So at Bacup Borough, it's quite intense, and to say the least. It's not the easiest job in the world. It's quite tough, really, because obviously we haven't got a lot of money, very little money, and we've got to rely on some excellent business partners that we've got, and beg, stealing and borrowing here and there, and then keeping the balls juggling, really. So it's very, very difficult. But in non-league, as a matter of, obviously away from Bacup Borough, I have been manager of Rosendale United and Glossop North End, director of football at Accrington Stanley. And the thing is, it really is intense, but the standard in non-league football is excellent. I mean, there's a lot of people that will go to Premiership games and suffer a little bit. And when I say suffer, I mean it's not the same now as what it is when you go to grassroots and you go to a non-league match, because a non-league match, you're there, you're right in the thick of it, you're a spectator, right? You get a feel of the action that's going on because you're right close to the playing surface, and the actual football itself the standard is incredible. It's really, really good high standard football.
Yeah, that's interesting.
These people who invest to go to Premiership games, if they can, I'd strongly recommend they go and take in a non-league game as well, because they'll be surprised if the standard is very, very good.
No, definitely, and for sure. And that's one of the things that we sort of have been touching on the show, is to encourage people to support the local clubs, because I think one thing about Bacup for me, Brent, and for anyone listening, is that when we talk about like family clubs, and you really do feel like you're part of a family there. You turn up, and as much as the football, there's also the element where, from a social perspective, and every town, in terms of football, I think people underestimate sometimes the importance of a football club in town, in a town where it brings people together, and the social element and everything that goes with it. I think that Bacup is unique in the sense that you do feel really welcome when you're there, and I think that a lot of people who do go watch the team play do talk about that. But for yourself, 20 years last year you celebrated being manager there. Can you tell us a bit about some of the highlights, Brent, the 20 years that you've sort of been there? And it's a phenomenal record. I think these days managers sort of come and go quite frequently, but to have been there 20 years, a phenomenal achievement. Can you tell us a bit some of the highlights, Brent, in your 20 years of being at Bacup?
Well, in the early stages, I mean, Bacup Borough hadn't won a major trophy. I think it was 56 years they hadn't won a major trophy. They've got close, but hadn't won one. So when I guided the team to their first league championship, that meant a lot to everybody at the club. The late Frank Manning and a lot of the people that's passed away now. That meant a lot to them, because that was the first major success for a long, long time, for like half a century. So basically that was a highlight to do that too. And we came from nowhere to win the league. I mean, the likes of Warrington were in the division then, and clubs like that have kicked on since, and are well up in the pyramid. But that was an highlight. That was a tremendous achievement. We went to I've guided the team to two League Challenge Cup winners. We went to Hague Avenue, which it was then, at Southport, where we beat Newcastle convincingly. I think it was something like 4-0 on the night to win the League Challenge Cup. And then more recently, we went to the Tameside Stadium at Ashton there, and we beat Main Road convincingly there to win the league, to do the double, basically, in the League Challenge Cup. So, those were three tremendous highlights. And then we got to the final of the Lancashire Football Association Challenge Cup not too long ago, where we come up against AFC Fylde, which was they were basically, at that point, they were like 2 leagues above us. But we gave them, we didn't win the cup, but the lads gave an absolute tremendous account of themselves. We went down to, in the end, it was 2-0, and the deciding goal was a penalty. But we really, really did give a good account of ourselves. So, there's been plenty of highlights in my time here at Bacup, but the difficulty is you're battling against the wind all the time, because to kick on in even in non-league, you've got to be able to offer the better players, decent expenses, money. And the thing is, we haven't got that money at Bacup, and even if we did have that money at Bacup, we have to look at the standard that we're playing in. A lot of clubs fall foul, because what we'll do, they'll be playing at the North West Counties level, and they'll pay big money to Mr. Average North West Counties player. Now, if there is money available, I wouldn't be wanting to pay big money to Mr. Average North West Counties player. I'd be wanting to try and attract your better sort of Evo stick Premiership player to drop them down to the North West Counties League, because that's going to give us a good jolt to get up the pyramid. But the difficult part is that money is the root of all evil. Without it, you're not going to get where you want. And have we underachieved at Bacup? I'd say where I want to be, massively underachieved, because I came in here ambitious manager that wanted to kick the club on. It was only when I got in here that I realised a lot of the issues behind the scenes that I've had to address, and I now have addressed. So we're now, in a healthy position to kick on. The club is set up for any investment, so we can really have a big push. And equally, when I came in here, if you're not, if there's players out there that want to come to you, but obviously you can't, just can't afford them, then you can't have them. And if you can't have them, you've just got to make do with the calibre of player that you've got, and try and squeeze the best out of them as much as you can. And in reality, I feel I've done that in my time while I've been at Bacup.
For sure. And I was speaking to my co-presenter prior to speaking to the co-presenter, and I mentioned how some of the players at Bacup.
I think I've lost you somewhere along the line, Jimmy.
Yeah, I was saying, Brent, that.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you there?
Brent.
Yeah, I lost you a little
bit. I was speaking to my co-presenter, and I sort of mentioned that when you sort of go to Bacup, one of the things that sort of really dawns on you is you walk through the clubhouse and you see some of the players who've been there, and to think a non-league club has sort of braced certain players that you've got there is phenomenal. And you walk through there and you see professional players and who sort of had a stint at Bacup. And can you tell us some of the players that you've sort of had at Bacup who've had professional players who've come to Bacup to play? And I think that's quite unique, really, in terms of a non-league club attracting those sort of players. Can you sort of share some of the players who've been there and how they've got on at Bacup?
I'm proud and privileged to say that the likes of David May, Ben Thornley, both ex-Manchester United players, they've basically finished their careers here at Bacup Borough. Julian Dow, Darren Beckford, Paul Moulden, former Manchester City, Jason Lands, Rochdale, Ian Hughes, who was a Welsh international, as was David Felgate. Both of those played. I've still got David Felgate here with me now as my first team coach. Lee Anderson, who was at Bury, Rodri Giggs, the brother to Ryan, Adrian Bellamy, who's the current captain. He was at Manchester United. Brian Welch was at Burnley. Jason Jarrett last year graced the Bacup Borough shirt. The list goes on, and I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to attract those. But before anybody has allegiance to them thinking that to attract David May must have been you must have been paying him this, because that's what were on the grapevine at the time. It was absolutely ridiculous. Let me tell you, I'm one of these people that I'm a big believer you've got to reach for the stars, and you reach as high as you can get, and there's only two words that could come back to you. One is yes, and the other one's no. It's no degrading if they turn around and say no. At least you've tried. Now, without trying, you're not going to. It's like the old saying: if you don't buy the raffle ticket, you're not going to win the draw. Now, in the likes of David May, I got told off several. David May won't come to Bake Up. He's not going to do that. But believe me, the first time I approached him, to be fair, I'm busy doing this and I'm busy doing that. But then I had an injury to Ian Hughes, who cracked his ribs in a training incident. So I was struggling for an experienced centre back. So I'm like a dog be a bone. I don't like once I get my claws into something, I go till I get what I want. And basically, to be fair to him, he came. I invited him up to the club. He had a look round. He got a feel about myself. He realised how passionate I were, and in the end, like you said, you're part of the family when you come to Bake Up, and he felt that from the warmth when he walked through the door. And so it wasn't about money. It was about wanting to enjoy football and wanting to play for somebody like myself that's passionate about the game, but still wanted to be. It's all right being passionate, but not doing things right. I'm passionate and wanting success, and David wanted to be a part of that, and I'm glad he did, and I'm glad he was part of this. In fact, there's quite a unique story about, and I always tell this story about the day that I actually signed David. Now, Sky TV cameras came, wanted to film it.
Yeah.
And the presenter of Sky that day was a gentleman called Peter Smith. He's still with Sky now. You see him on Saturday Saturday when he's around the grounds. And he before David May had arrived, he basically said to me, "You was once the manager of Rosendale United, wasn't you?" And I went, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "Yeah, you won the cup with them, didn't you, in 93, 94? And I went, "Yeah, Gig Lane. We actually won it at Gig Lane. We beat St Helens 1-0. Oh, he said, "Yeah." He said, I was there. I said, "Oh, well, yeah." I said, "That's a small world, isn't it?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, one of your players at that time, which is a guy called Duncan McFadden, who actually played for the original Combe Dynamos," he said, "he's a friend of mine." So I went, "Oh, is it?" I said, "Well, you'll know Sid Parkinson." He said, "That name don't ring a bell." I said, "Well, Sid," and I showed him a photograph I had on the wall of Rosendale United squad, and he was a sprightly old man that was on the end of it, who was the physio. I said, "Well, Sid there," I said, "he's 90-year-old. I said, "Would you believe?" He said, "He was my physio." I said, "And he's still running on football pitches today for Bayern Allswick. He's still treating players, and his doors open at his house." And he said, "Give over." I said, "No, seriously." I said, "It's people like him that should get recognised in the Queen's Honours List." Exactly. So he said, "Yeah, you're right." Anyway, David May arrives, they do the filming, do the signing, and as he's going, Peter Smith, he says to me, "Can I take your telephone number?" He said, "I'll keep in touch with you." And I went, "Yeah, no problem." About 4 weeks went by. 4 weeks later, I get this call from him. He says, "Peter Smith here from Sky came to do the filming, and you're signing David May." "Oh, yeah." He said, "How do you like a challenge?" And I went, "Challenge?" I said, "Well, yeah, I love a challenge, me." I said, "That's why I'm at Bake Up." He went, "Well, listen," he said, "You know when you were telling me that, it's people like Sid Parkinson that should get in the Queen's Honours List," he said, "how do you fancy being one of the nominees?" He said, "I've done my research." He said, "I don't know whether it'll work." He said, "But I've approached Sir Alex Ferguson," and he said, "And Sir Alex is going to do a piece." And he said, "I've approached Big Sam, who was then Bolton Wanderers manager." And he said, "And Big Sam's doing a piece on him." And he said, "And then us at Sky are going to do a piece." And he said, "And Duncan will." And he said, "And we want you to write something as a nominee because he's worked under you." I went, love it, want to do that. That would be brilliant." He said, "I don't know if it'll happen, but let's see." Well, would you believe he actually went to Buckingham Palace and we got him the MBE.
Incredible achievement.
He's not with us now. He's sadly passed away since, but he got the MBE. Now, I tell that because that just shows you how a conversation by how one door opens, I'm here signing David May, we're having a conversation about somebody that's not even there, and that leads to him being recognised in the Queen's Honours List and getting an MBE. And I think it's a fantastic story.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic story indeed, and it just goes to show that football is an incredible sport, and also the local football, non-league football as well. And sort of, I think one thing I think that Bakeup's done for sure is put non-league football. It's given non-league football exposure. The likes of Mays and the professional players who've been there for sure, and I think that it's always attracted that sort of interest. I think there's always been a nostalgia around Bacup, and I spoke to my co-presenter Ian, who's writing at the moment for non-league. He's running the football man cave, and he's sort of covering non-league football, and I sort of suggest that he gets out to Bacup and does a write-up, because obviously there's not many clubs out there that have had that sort of stature of player and staff, and I think that's a big thing. And in terms of the future, Brent, where do you see this? Bacup at the moment, they're a good crop of young players. I think there's some great players coming through. I think one thing that you've always done is give the young players a chance. Some have gone on to, other clubs have moved their career on, and that's the way it goes in football. But certainly the players who've been there, you've given them the chance to fulfil the potential. The one thing that Bacup's always done is put good training sessions on. The staff have always been, top class, like the Felgates of this world out there who puts good training on, yourself, Brent. And the thing you've always done for me is give the young players a chance. And there's a good crop of young players coming through at the moment. I think that with a bit of experience from what I've seen can go on to do some of the things that Bacup's done in previous years. And what's your sort of outlook on the future, Brent, some of the young players coming through? Where do you think that these players can sort of take the club moving forward?
I think we've got a really, really talented bunch at the minute of young lads. They need a little bit more experience, but that's what they're gaining here all the time. I introduced them at the back end of last season, and then this season they've picked up the baton and been around the first team in most of the matches. And for me, going at the turn of the year, we were hovering about 5th, 6th in the league, 13 points off the top. Because the team at the top have got off to a really good start. But again, it comes down to finances, so we are punching above our weight in terms of that. We're in the quarter-final of the League Cup, that we've got a tough game, but if we can get through that, we're only basically 2 games off a final. So everything looks rosy on that side. I'm really, really pleased the way that everything's going. As for the club, well, again, some people out there who listened to my interview when I came in at Bacup from Doncaster Rovers at first, because I was a bit naive in terms of I was talking from the heart as a football person, not knowing what was going on behind the scenes. I came out with statements, and I felt it at the time, that with my contacts in the game, with the people that I can draw on, with the people that are known, and the player contacts I've got, there's no reason why in 10 years, this is when I came in at first, that this club could not be knocking on the door of the National Conference. What I didn't realise when I made that statement were all the pitfalls and the skeletons that came out of the cupboard behind the scenes that I had to address. It took me best part of 10 years in fighting with the council to get a decent lease out of it, to make it sustainable. But I've got that now. We got a 75-year lease in 2010, so we've got a good basis for that. So everything's right now. The problem is I'd like to do exactly what the class of 92 have done, but let's be honest, I'm one on my own. The class of 92, there's 4 or 5 of them, and then there's Mr. Lynn or ahead of them. So they've got it, so that's why they can kick on like they can. That's not taking anything away. I want to get where they're going. I want to do the same things as what they're doing, but it'll take me twice as long because I'm Brent Peters on my own, basically. And that's the way it is, it's tough, but listen, God loves a trier and I'm a winner.
Yeah, no,
and
sure.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think one thing you've done for sure, Brent, is the players you've introduced to the club. certainly from a footballing purist point of view, you definitely put Bake Up on the map as a footballing town and re-established it anyway. That's for sure. I think that the Bake Up re-established itself.
Yeah, I'll watch you again there, Jimmy.
Yeah. And I was just saying, that's. I think that you certainly re-established Bake Up as a footballing town on the map again with some of the high-profile players you've brought there and won stuff. And I think a lot of people probably don't realise how hard it is, not just from a managerial perspective in the non-league, but obviously, like you said, there's other challenges off the field, and it's not just about putting a team out every week. It's about balancing the books. It's about, like you said earlier, about leases on the ground and that sort of stuff, and it takes time. But I think with all the experience and everything else that goes with it, with a bit of investment here and there, I think the club is set to sort of go to a new level, that's for sure. And I think, like you says, I mean, certainly not taking anything away from Salford. They've done well so far, but the investment's a big thing, and that's a huge thing in non-league. I think, the investment with players and other stuff as well. But I've every confidence. I think that, from a football perspective, Bake Up certainly is been put on the map since you've gone there and certainly won stuff and brought high-profile players out there like the likes of May, that non-league clubs could not dream of bringing. So the future looks positive, and hopefully the club gets the opportunity to get itself up the league, and you get to achieve your dreams. And my colleague here, Ian, who's sort of with us now at the moment, he's sort of been covering non-league teams. I suggest that you get down to Bake Up and maybe do a write-up and that sort of stuff. Sort of going to bring him into the conversation. Ian, your thoughts on non-league so far? So if you just want to, Brent, some of your thoughts on what you've seen so far.
How are you doing, Brent? You all right?
I'm all right, yeah, thank you, Ian.
I'm good. Obviously we cover from the Premiership down to National League North, but we do have writers on for Ramsbottom. We've got people involved in Radcliffe, a lot of volunteers on Ashton United. And I think that non-league sort of mentality is something completely different, and it is so unique that it really needs highlighting. And like I said to Jimmy before, I'd love to come down and do a little piece on like sort of highlight Bake Up a little bit more and sort of show Manchester why they should be getting down there, because we have these like non-league days, don't we, nowadays? And I feel like it should be more put out there. Like you said before, obviously not so much struggling for money, but you need money to run a football club. And if you look at Salford, obviously they've been quite fortunate these past few years. But we'd definitely love to come down and sort of do a little piece on you.
It'd be fantastic. I mean, the thing is, it's like people might out there, your listeners might be thinking, Bake Up, but let me tell you, the biggest part of my players are from Greater Manchester. That's where my squad, nucleus of my squad, comes from. I mean, yeah, we have local players that's come through the youth system, but the biggest part, and we actually train in, would you believe, we train in Blakely.
Right.
Because that's why we do that, because it's easier for, having a central hub where everybody, me included, I'm not making it in comfort for myself that everybody comes to Bake Up.
Yeah.
We travel to Blakely, people filter into Blakely and from then Greater Manchester, and we just cut all the travelling down the best we can. I try my best to run, because I've been involved in Football League environments, and some of the clubs I've been involved with, like at the time I was at Doncaster, they were struggling financially, and Bury was struggling as well financially. So I always, what I try to do, the template I'm using here is basically the similar template, same template as Football League clubs with little or no money.
Yeah.
It doesn't. My philosophy is it costs us nothing to be professional.
And that's it. And I think, obviously, when fans come down, even though they accept it's non-league and you're at like whatever tier, be it the first or the 15th, all they want to see is that professionalism and that care for the club, which I think you get a lot more of down in non-league. Like I say, a lot of your players are from Greater Manchester. Bake-Up, steeped in some decent history. I was chatting with Jimmy before about it all. So I said, it's what they want to see, and that's what I think minimum you should be expecting at any level when you play football, is just sort of getting that professionalism right, and then, like I say, if you can start moving on from there and start pushing through the ranks, you've got a good foundation, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely, for sure. And that's the key, getting that foundation. And I think Bake-Up certainly got the foundation. It takes a while to get a foundation in there. I think people don't always realise that it takes a bit of time to get the foundation in there. Once you've got the foundation in there, you can sort of move on and kick on to a new level, and that's for sure, definitely. But I want to thank you, Brent, for coming on board the show. It's been an interesting insight into the non-league, particularly from someone who's been there and done that, and it's sort of like, really, really fascinating insight into how non-league clubs run, that's for sure. So we want to wish you all the best for the weekend and for the rest of the season, and hopefully get you on board again on the show again to see how things are getting on. But thanks again, Brent. We appreciate you coming on board the show.
No problem. Thanks.
Cheers. See you later, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All the best. Cheers. Bye.
Are you looking to advertise your business, promote your company or market your project? Well, you can do just that with Salford City Radio. All you have to do is get in contact with us, which couldn't be easier. Email us at info@salfordcityradio.org, call 0161 793 2939, or you can click on the advertising tab at our website at www.salfordcityradio.org.
And there you have it, a fascinating insight into the world of non-league with manager Brent Peters. And having had the opportunity myself to do some work at Bake-Up and work alongside Brent, I can assure you now that the work that he does there is top class, and it's a fantastic club. And like he's mentioned there, a lot of the players who do play for the club are based in and around the area, the Salford area, Manchester area. So certainly get down there and support local teams, because that's what it's all about. It's a fantastic club. And Ian, yourself, you've sort of been around the non-league now. You looked around. Have you been surprised at the standard yourself? Is any surprises in terms of, or your first impression when you first went down to non-league?
Do you know what? When you go down to non-league, you kind of expect in your head that sort of Sunday league football and pitches. And I remember, I think it might have been November, October last year, and Chris Sutton mentioned something about like non-league standard pitch. And do you know what? Like, you go down there, obviously they're all volunteers, they're all taking the time out for the love of the club, and the standards are so high because obviously it's people taking pride in their own work.
Oh, exactly. I think so. Yeah.
It's nice to see. Obviously they're not getting paid for it, but they're putting as much work in as somebody getting paid. The pitches, Curzon Ashton pitch, even the stadium I was quite blown away with.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think exactly correct. I think that definitely the non-league people will be surprised at the standard. And speaking of non-league, this week Salford play Leyton Orient away. It's a big game for them. They back to winning ways. They won 2-0 against Wrexham, a good Wrexham team to break a winless streak of 4 games, but they're back to winning ways. Leyton Orient, 57 points. They're probably the team that's the favourite to win the league and go up. Well, at least amongst the joint favourites. 57 points, Salford on 52. Huge game for them. Huge game for them because obviously a loss there, then they sort of start falling 8 points behind. They can win there, then the gap's back to 2 points behind, and a draw obviously is as you were. So huge game for Salford this weekend. I think for me sometimes it's one of them where, in that sort of league, to go up to that next level isn't as easy as people realise. And there's a lot of teams down to have a lot of experience, a lot of good players who've been in the professional scene, a lot of managers who've been in the professional game as well. And having money is one thing, but also I think it's really important to get things right off the pitch, that's for sure. And
it is.
It's going to be a fascinating game, I think, this weekend. Salford away to Leyton Orient, and if they at least can good for a draw there, that'll be a credible result. That's for sure. But they can somehow nick a win, then they're back in there. And it just goes to show, that you lose a game and that one loss becomes 2, 3, 4. You win a game because 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think for me, hopefully that's the bad patch dealt with for Salford. They can turn the corner. A win against Wrexham was a huge result, I think, because they're one of the favourites too, you'd think. So hopefully they've turned the corner there. So we'll look out for that result That's for sure, how they're going against Leyton Orient away. But sort of heading back to the Premier League again, this weekend we've got some huge games in the Premier League. Huge games in the Premier League. We talked about Tottenham before. How do you see Tottenham against United? Ian, what are your thoughts, Tottenham versus United? There's a Solskjaer effect. Will it extend to the Tottenham game?
I hope so. I mean, obviously, this weekend's FA Cup weekend. We've got Reading dinner time tomorrow, and the word is he's going to blood some youngsters, rest some players. Obviously, Pogba got a bit of a knock against Newcastle, a bit of a naughty challenge.
Yeah.
So we're hoping just to refresh, bring Sanchez in, bring Lukaku in, have a little bit of a squad rotation, and try and build, obviously keep on this momentum going forward to Spurs, because I think Spurs is proper first test. Even a lot of United fans sort of say, look, we don't mind losing as long as we're losing style type thing, and if we play well. But still, you want to see a win. Do you know what I mean? Like, I expect us to nick it 1-0, 2-1, something like that. Spurs have battered us past few times we've played them. We've had an absolute nightmare with them. But let's just hope that this weekend we sort of see off Reading, rest a couple of players, get refreshed. I think there was a talk about going to Dubai for a couple of days and then going to Spurs, get a decent result, and then just kick on. Because obviously, ambitions now are top 4, aren't they? It's going to be no more than that. And since Solskjaer's come in, we've slowly clawed back to about 6 points now behind Chelsea. So
it's going to be a pivotal game for sure. But like you mentioned, I think Reading's going to be a tough test. They're good, traditionally a good cup team as well. By the way, Reading is.
We seem to play them a lot as well in the FA Cup recently.
That's right, exactly. It's like history repeating itself, and it's going to be a tough test. And how do you see that going against Reading? Do you think United's got enough there to?
I think if it bloods just 1 or 2 youngsters, gives them a chance, sort of getting them fringe players a chance as well. Get used to the system and the style of play he wants to play. Hopefully Lukaku can keep up. I think he's got 2 and 2, get 3 and 3. Sanchez just getting back playing more than anything. Again, it's one of them results where we're expected, the old United expect them to blow them away 3-4-0. And that's what I expect tomorrow, a 3-4-0 win. Another clean sheet would be nice. And progress, and realistically, really, if Solskjaer's going to go for a trophy, I think the FA Cup's the one he's got to put all his bags in. FA Cup and top 4 is his aim. FA Cup would be nice, obviously, but I think top 4 is going to be more of a...
Or Champions League.
If Roberto Di Matteo did it, you never know, do you? But it's a massive ask. It's a huge ask.
I mean, they got a tough game as well in the next round too, by the way. But the thing is, like he says, I think the Champions League, and I think in a way it's one of them really where Old Trafford, not many teams are going to fancy it there if they play the attacking brand of football they've been playing recently and away. So I certainly wouldn't write them off for the Champions League. It's like the players are there, Ian. I mean,
we've got the quality in the squad.
The qualities are there, and any fans listening, do get in touch. The Friday Weekly Sports Show. What are your thoughts on United in the Champions League? Can they go on and put a dent in that competition? I think that's you've got to be in it. I think they missed a trick, not finishing first. Not that it matters. I mean, every team's hard, obviously, this, that, and the other. But I do think there was an opportunity there to top the group. But that all said and done, Juventus, who did top the group, have got Atletico. So
I know.
Yeah. So there's one of them really. But I do think United at home, any team in the world is going to think United at home. They're not going to really fancy that.
No, it's bringing that fear factor back. Do you know what I mean? We've not had it in recent years.
Exactly, for sure. That the theatre of dreams factor. That's for sure. But obviously Reading is going to be a tough test. A really, really tough test before Tottenham, that's for sure. And you'd like to think United's got enough to beat Reading, but we know from previous years the FA Cup is one of the beauties of the Cup, the majors of the Cup. And I think that what makes it one of the greatest, not the greatest domestic competition in the world, is that romance of the Cup. Really, it's fantastic. So we shall see. But I certainly think for Tottenham and United, when they meet, it's going to be a pivotal game for both teams. It's almost like a selling point for Pochettino as well.
Yes.
I think for him, it's a big game. We'll see both managers try and stake a claim as well.
It might be like it might backfire because they want to impress us.
Yeah, it's the pressure for sure. Yeah. And City's got a tough game as well in the next league fixture against Wolves. Yeah. That won't be easy. Wolves has shown that they can mix it, and I think Wolves for sure. It's the brand of football they play is phenomenal. I went to watch them last year, and They play a great brand of football. They stunned Chelsea recently as well. They've been playing some good football. It won't be easy for City as well, who are trying to chase Liverpool down, and Liverpool got Brighton. You'd like to think they got enough to win there. But the beauty of the Premier League, I think one of the magic things about the Premier League is that any given week, it's never a sure thing.
No,
that's the beauty, isn't it?
Ruins my coupon every single week.
Yeah. That's the wonderful thing about the Premier League, is that the competitiveness.
Yeah,
it really is a competitive league, and irrespective of who you're playing, you're in for a game. That's for sure. You know that no matter who you play, you're in for a tough game. That's for sure. And
I think it is like with the lower teams of the second half, the bottom half of the league. When they get a taste at Premier League, they don't want to drop out of it, obviously, with the money. So they're putting up more of a fight to stay in there. So that's why it's so... You can just never tell, when it used to be just a top 2, top 3, and it was easy pickings, similar to like a Spanish league or a German league. Everybody wants to stay in that Premier League, purely because football's such a money game now. That
it is indeed.
It's all or nothing.
No, it is for sure. No, exactly. So it's a great point. I think these days finances dominate the game, that's for sure. And I think that, irrespective of where you finish in the league, irrespective of where you finish in the league, means more revenue. So if you finish 10th in adverse to 12th, it's a few million extra, which goes a long way towards buying players and getting wages and that sort of stuff. So it's a huge thing, that's for sure. And I think sometimes that's, in a way, the that top 4